Hey, you. Thanks for tapping into another episode of Untapped Keg podcast, where we look at different perspectives of sobriety and mental health so that you can take something, implement it into your own life. We Here we believe there's only one right way to sobriety. That's the way that works for you. I'm your host, RJ Zimmerman, and I'm extremely excited to be joined by Brenda Hibbs and Jenna Smith, authors of the Other 12 Steps. How are you doing today, Jenna and Brenda?
Good. Doing great. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Glad to have you. I'm really excited for this conversation and about your book, because I think it's definitely something that is needed. So I'm glad that you both leaned into that. With that being said, could you give us a little bit of an understanding of why you decided to write the book?
Sure. You want to start?
You start.
I start. Well, you instigated.
Okay, I'll start then.
Or I guess I could go. I have been about 7 years into different kinds of recovery education, I would call it, just self-sought,
Mhm.
you reach that point where you need to make a change. And for me, it was a pretty slow change, as it probably is a lot of people. It's not a fast thing. So yeah, about 7 years. I went to local, county health department classes, and 4 years ago, I finally went to a rehab out of town, and in between, I've done a lot of AA. So through all that, my mom has been really supportive, and I've learned so many things during that slow change to being where I'm at today, which is very comfortable with my sobriety level, and cleaning up a bit of a mess that I made, and creating a new life for myself. And through that journey, my mom has been there, observing and being supportive, and she's always had really great ideas, and has helped me do a lot through the way. So through that, she came up with these ideas, because through AA, I guess, is a pretty strict in general. They've been around for a really long time. Not exactly strict, I guess, isn't the right word, but traditional, maybe.
Yeah.
They have a very traditional system, which works for a lot of people, and I appreciate it a lot, but it doesn't, cover a lot of the things that a lot of the challenges I ended up coming upon.
Like coming home to.
Yeah. And my mom would help me with all those, and she would write things down as we went along. Be like, oh, there's another thing. Right?
Yeah.
Now you go, I guess.
Okay. So Jenna went to a rehab in Eastern Oregon, and then she came home, and she was going to spend a couple of months in an Oxford house, a halfway house in Eugene, which is about an hour's drive from where we live. And so we were driving there together, and we were talking about what Jenna had learned in rehab, and what she learned in AA. And in that conversation, we started realizing there were things that actually aren't covered in AA and aren't covered much in rehab. That a person in that position, having lived in a halfway house for a couple of months and then coming home, would come home to messes, legal messes, paperwork messes, financial messes, relationship messes, all these messes that needed to be cleaned up.
Yeah.
And that would be quite the process. So rehab and AA were sort of like the beginning of the rest of your sort of life recovery. those were only the beginning. And so we started writing things down, and we came up with 12 things that ended up being chapters in the book. 12 other sort of steps to help people clean up the messes that addiction had made in their lives. I like the subtitle of the book. It's Building a Life Worth Living, a guide to post-rehab success. And that's how we came up with the other 12 steps.
Yeah, I think we ended up writing down about 10 and went, well, geez, we're pretty close. I don't know. It's almost like it's almost like a whole nother 12-step program. I was like,
Yeah.
so we just went the extra 2 and had a 12, and that just, it created its own theme. Kind of just came together.
And that's really, really great, because there's so much in life, right? Where I have personally said, I stopped drinking and I thought that was okay. All my problems are going to be gone because they're all brought on by alcohol, right?
Right.
And the fact is that wasn't true. What my not drinking anymore really did was it highlighted the problems in my life that were actually there, that I then had to clean up. And one of them, right, being a disconnection from myself. And that I didn't even realize was a mess I had to start to work to reverse until 6 years after I stopped drinking. And so bringing attention to a lot of these things that, are there. And a lot of the reason that there's a lot of, you stop drinking and you look and you're like, well, my life isn't any better. Why wouldn't I go back to drinking? What's the point of this? And so giving people that guide can go a long way of giving them just a little bit more hope and a little bit more understanding of things to come. When you think about that life recovery in post-rehab, what are, a couple things that you like to highlight to be able to really go over, start to rebuild?
Well, I was I guess for me a big one has been the legal and the financial thing. I'm still working on it, but I'm reaching a point of like the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
I'm like, there, it seemed quite impossible. It seemed quite an impossible feat. Like so intimidating. Like I, didn't even want to attempt it, and to have the support, the support of my family, but also just the resources, and and it also helps to still have the AA and the sober community, because everybody's in the same boat, it seems. So that's also to have that support. But that has been probably the biggest one for me, and it's been really, really nice to have a little bit of order put, a little bit to have help and resources to put a little bit of order to that chaos, I guess, and to feel successful at it, to feel like it's, I'm successful at it. It's happening. So
yeah.
Yeah,
That's huge, being able to see that progress, right? Because you see that progress and now you're like, oh, I can continue this. And so, having that guidebook to be able to, oh, here's where you want to be. Here's where you are. Okay, start working towards it. And now you can really see that coming to fruition. You can see the smile on your face when you look and you're like, I'm there. I did it. I did it.
Yes. And because it also creates this new avenue, like once that is finished, like the possibilities for what I could do with this energy that I've been putting into this, and the money, and all this, like, like, so through my mind the whole time, the closer I'm getting to the finale of this the one chapter or challenge, I guess,
Mhm.
is the more my mind is going through like really positive, awesome ideas of what to do next. What do I want to do?
Yeah.
What, like, so that's pretty exciting as well to have that future to look forward to, I guess,
Yeah.
to the options, to have options.
To move from that space of this is what I have to do, and then get to, well, this is actually what I want to do. Like that's some freedom, right? That can come from
Yes.
that. And it takes
Yeah.
building upon what you started with. And that's something that really, when it comes to making these big behavior changes and life changes, right, in general, that it's that consistency that builds up, and you can say discipline, but it almost discipline to me almost seems like too strong of a word necessarily, but like the consistency that comes from that, because in my opinion, like that consistency is more difficult than the discipline. And so being able to show up and do that thing, that's really, yeah, that's really special. And that's really awesome that you're able to provide that roadmap for people as well and use your life experience to be able to share your story.
Yes, it is really exciting. And that was making me feel or think about how it's almost, it feels like a new freedom, even though it's been like, it felt like a really heavy weight and like
Mhm.
a cage, and that having to have that discipline and having to do those things does feel like, being
Absolutely.
a person that doesn't like being told what to do, or, like
Mm,
authority figures, like it's been, a totally opposite character thing for me to just be like, okay, you guys, I'm just gonna do what I need to do because that's gonna clear me clear me up, even though I don't like you guys telling me what to do, but in a way it's made me feel more free because the freedom I'm gaining is fantastic.
Worth the effort.
It's totally worth it. Totally worth it.
Yeah, I think a really big component of what I see Jenna going through is determination. I mean, dogged determination to see this through.
And Brenda, when you hear Jenna talk about that light at the end of the tunnel and being able to move from the feeling of have to do and that freedom, what's going through your mind when you hear that?
Oh, that's what I want for her so badly. Yeah. I I have that freedom. I have freedom from addiction. Um, and I have freedom from legal trouble. I have freedom from financial terribleness. And I
Yeah.
want that for Jenna. I want that for every person that has has made the effort and to get a handle on their addiction, whatever path that has been for them. I want that freedom for them. I get excited by that, by
Mm.
thinking of all the people that can eventually see that light at the end of the tunnel. I met a guy one time who was a bartender, and I was at the bar. I was probably having a drink, and I was talking to the bartender, and the bartender told me he was an alcoholic. And that really surprised me. And he told me that because he got a handle on that, he could still work as a bartender because it was work that he loved. He liked the social side of it. And he felt free. He felt freed from, like Jenna said, that burden. He was a different person. And I remember being happy for him.
Mm.
Yeah.
And that's, what you're talking about with like the freedom from alcohol, freedom from, addictions, from the ritualized comfort seeking that maybe took over our lives and affected it in a, negative way. And that is something that, you see and you have to correct. But when you get to a point to be able to feel that it doesn't have that power over you and you just get to make the decisions that you want to make, it's really indescribable when there's been something in your life that's had that shadow cast over you for so long. And just when you walk out of it and into that light that Jenna's talking about, like that's, yeah, it's really, really fantastic. And I wanted to ask you that question, Brenda, too, because I could see the smile on your face and just how much you were lighting up listening to Jenna talk. And it's so beautiful that you've been able to embark on this together, being, a mother and a daughter, and you being there, Brenda, as a support through all of this is something that really is special as well. That, you can tell that Jenna really appreciates that. And that's something that the relationship that you two have is really fantastic. And I'm glad you got to write this book together.
Me too.
Very much so. Yes, I consider myself extremely lucky to have a mother that is so fully involved and has such a big heart and just won't give up on me either.
Yeah, committed.
Committed
to helping you get to that end of that tunnel.
because it's
been a long road.
It has been long, and it's gotten really dirty and dark, and it's so invaluable to have somebody like that in my life.
And yet I'm not alone in being that way.
Mhm.
I've met two parents in similar circumstances. One I met at an Al-Anon meeting many years ago. His son was addicted to heroin and was homeless, living in his car, if he even still had a car. And his father was so distressed and would have done anything to help his son overcome that burden. I only met him once. I don't know the end of that story. But I hope after all these years, it's become a good path and not a bad one. The other person was someone I sold a car to just this year. His son was living at a halfway house, a shelter. He was living in a shelter. Yeah. And had been, I think, 2 months sober. And his dad was buying him this car because he didn't want him to be on the streets with no place to sleep, even though he was at the shelter. Unfortunately, the son did not remain sober and eventually lost the car to parking tickets, basically. The car was towed, he couldn't pay the towing bill, and the car was lost. But the point of me telling that story is here was another parent who would do anything to help that child who was dealing with addiction. And again, I hope that story turns around. I spoke to both his father and his mother. They were both in great distress, wanting to help. And I think never giving up on your child is a huge component of that, so that you're ready when that child is ready. Even if ready goes up and down and up and down.
Yes.
Whenever that child is ready, you're there to help, because next time it may not take quite so long. And the time after that, it might be a shorter time, etc.
Yes. And this is where, so me being certified by This Naked Mind, we like to call those data points instead of relapses. And the reason is because you can gather data from what is going on. And this is something that, you know, post rehab and being in early sobriety, that people really can benefit from is the mental health side. Because as we were kind of alluding to earlier, you know, a lot of times, especially in the old models of talking about addiction, and I intentionally used ritualized comfort seeking because at one time that's what this was for us, was comfort. And so that's why we get drawn back to it, because we're seeking that comfort, right? And we use the traditional model still look at, well, a cause of mental health is the addiction, right? But what they're starting to see, and actually it's studies that are from the 70s that are finally being brought to light, that are showing this, is actually mental health is the cause of addiction and not the other way around. And so when you really can start to dig into the mental health aspects of it, it really benefits you in moments of you know, being post rehab, especially early, when you're really susceptible to triggers, to cravings, to moments of stress. And that's something that is really important for people to take into account. And having a supportive parent around can be, it can be, you know, just that lift that you need at times when things get tough.
Yeah, yeah. I I often wish I could have helped Jenna earlier. This has been going on since she was about 15 or 16. I won't say how old she is now, but it's been a while. And at 16, her dad died. And then about 5 or 6 years later, her fiance died.
Wow.
Those traumas
Yes.
took her a long, long time. I won't say to get over, but maybe to settle with.
Work through a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it took a lot of time, but yeah, those extreme, yeah, extreme traumas definitely trigger a lot of unhealthy behavior that I already, I'd say it was they were probably 10 years,
We're 10 years
about 10 years apart. Yeah, if I was 16, but my dad was, he passed of for being an alcoholic, basically.
Yeah.
And a rock and roll partier. So that was that set me on like harder on that path, I want to say.
Yeah.
You know, and then the fiance thing, but kind of again a drug related. But it's a culture, it's a whole culture. So
It is.
those things to get over with, on top of, you know, those almost creating more mental instability, that added to the addiction. So I guess, yeah, extra pressure, but everybody's got traumas from their pasts, but some more intense than others, I guess. But yeah, I did start a little early with that.
Well, I'm from Wisconsin, and in Wisconsin, it's legal for parents to give their kids alcohol at any age, as long as it's coming from the parents. So in my context, you started a little late, but that's okay. Like there's no right or wrong, right? But that's why I didn't have the surprise face, because that's the culture that I was raised in. And so, but I also started late. I didn't start till 18 because I was a goody two shoes. So, but what you're talking about with those cycles, and, you know, growing up just from school, from, so many other areas, and being young and dealing with those massive losses, those massive life events that happen. It's so normalized in our society to turn to alcohol. And so when it's normalized, then it's something that you do, and it does give you that relief from your feelings, because, it is scientifically proven that it numbs out those feelings. What, we don't take into account is the fact that, well, we don't feel those feelings, but they are still there and they don't move through us. And so that just adds to the time that it can take. And that's something that we're not aware of, because we don't talk about emotions and feelings in our culture and how to feel them and move through them. And that's part of the mental health aspect. And I think finally a lot of the mental health community is being able to actually explain what to do, rather than, oh, you just feel it. What is, here's an emotions wheel, tell me what you're feeling. I was handed one of those when I first started therapy at 33, and I gave it back and asked for something in English. Because I didn't understand. I was like, okay, I know angry, I know sad. I don't even know if I could tell you what happy is. So this means nothing to me. Do you have something different? Do you have flashcards? What would you give a kindergartner? And they would not accommodate me. And I'm like, this is a waste of time. But it's one of those things that, now that we're talking about it more and working through it, it gives us that piece of life that a lot of people have been missing.
Yeah. So keeping in mind that this book was written specifically for
Yep.
people who are just post-rehab or
Mhm.
in early sobriety. When I put together the chapters, I purposely chose nurture your mental well-being as chapter 1.
Yes.
Not get a handle on your mentalness. Nurture. I purposely use the word nurture. Nurture your mental well-being. And chapter 1 is really, really basic. It talks about eating a good diet, taking some time for calmness, meditation, not in the religious sense, but in just thinking how things are going, attending meetings, spending time in nature, seeking professional help, developing coping skills, getting enough rest, practicing mindfulness, connecting with others, all those ways of nurturing your mental well-being.
Mm-hmm.
If you read straight through it, you probably won't get much out of it. You have to sort of take it section by section, really think about it, and how it can help you nurture your mental well-being, because that's like the first step. And another important step that I put in the book is in chapter 7. The beginning of chapter 7 talks about self-forgiveness as the first step. Chapter 7 is about relationships, mending burnt bridges, etc. But the first thing in that chapter is self-forgiveness, because if you don't forgive yourself, then how can you go on to mend relationships or create relationships? Yeah, taking responsibility, identifying your mistakes, acknowledging mistakes, all of that has to do with self-forgiveness. You do that within yourself, not with another person.
Yeah,
Yes.
building the relationship with yourself, I guess,
Yeah.
is pretty
What?
key.
We have a relationship with yourself since when? Nuh-uh. And
Yep.
something that I have found really powerful is defining words for myself, and forgiveness being one of those, because that's something that I really struggle with, not just for myself, but for other people. Listen, if there was an Olympic event for grudge holder, I would be the world record holder. Like, I was a massive grudge holder. Now, was that good for me? No, but that's why me defining that for what forgiveness is allowed me to break through some of the blocks that I had with it. How would you define forgiveness, and how you'd be able to give it to yourself?
Well, there's a big part of about guilt,
Yes, that's
carrying
such a
so much
massive.
guilt.
Mhm.
Yeah, and faking it, I guess, has a lot. Has I've it's spent a lot of time. Fake it till you make it, I guess, is a thing that people say. But it's come in pretty handy actually for me, because I really did have to just pretend to forgive myself, and for a long time. It still kind of irks me, of course, but a lot of the things that transpired that I instigated that were definitely my fault. So I'm trying to think of what that would what like some simple words to explain that, like
So for mine, for example, like one thing that I noticed when I really started to work on my emotions and feelings and actually being able to feel them and understand what was going on, right? Um, I noticed my energy, like, and especially like when my energy, and this, it turns out, was my nervous system, but I didn't know that at the time, right? But just like how my energy when I was in a state of peace, and then when I would be around certain people, it would get chaotic, right? And so I started to take note of that. And it wasn't even certain people, but it was ended up being situations, and how I was able to take that and utilize it for how to work through those and really get to a point of, self-soothing and things like that. And so because of the energy that I was feeling in that moment, I realized that for me, forgiveness was about the energy that was available for me. And so I can continue to give the energy to the past event. I could continue to allow that person, allow the outcome, those things in the past to take my energy away from me and my focus to kind of be there, or I could take my energy back and use it for what I want to use it for, and healing and growing and creating a life that I really care about. And that definition allowed me to let go of a lot of that anger that was there, a lot of the resentment and the vitriol. And then that allowed me to be able to understand why I made the decision that I made, because I took away the information that I have now about what was going on, but looking at the context of what the reason I made that decision and giving myself that understanding. Was it maybe the right decision? No, but I can understand why I made it. And so that understanding allowed me to have some self compassion and allowed me to make mistakes in my mind, looking back at the past and a little bit different. And so by me being able to just focus on the energy that it was taking, that removed some of the pieces that were some blocks that kept me from forgiving myself and also forgiving other people. And so um that's why I asked that question, because I think when you can uh when you have that forgiveness and that understanding of it, it's really powerful and how it can move. And so I was just curious how how you were able to define it and move through that.
yeah, it's almost like a personal release of
Yes.
it's finally being able to let it go is all that resentment, yes,
Mhm.
and pain, I guess, and built up hurt is it almost seems a little bit selfish at first.
Yeah.
I feel, you know,
Absolutely.
wow,
Yes.
I couldn't possibly make myself feel good by releasing this like horrible mental, you know, like stigma that I have. Like, I don't deserve it, you know, but then you do, and it does. It feels a lot better. And when you're not putting out that negativity, it's true, you feel a lot lighter, and can have that energy that you're talking about, just
Yeah.
a much more positive energy that kind of helps surround you. Yeah, and attracts other positive energies, I guess, and doesn't keep you up at night as as badly. So I guess a release, I'm gonna say, with forgiveness, it takes a long time because you hold on to it.
Mm-hmm.
You hold on to it
Yes.
pretty strongly. And then if you can finally let it go at all, even a little bit, but
I
little
like
by
that. I like that. That's a really great visualization too of just that little by little. And like how we talked earlier, it's about that consistency and the progress. And
yeah.
yeah, I really like that. And I realized that I put you on the spot and I apologize for that, but hell, that is a great definition. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. Your addition helped me bounce my brain back to find to narrow it down. So
I think
Awesome.
another important component of nurturing your mental well-being in early sobriety is self-esteem.
Mm.
So I have a story about self-esteem. It's probably the Mandela effect. I'm probably not remembering it correctly, but this is how I always thought of it in my head. So I had really low self-esteem. I was reminded by Jenna saying, I deserve this self-forgiveness? I don't deserve this. That's low self-esteem. I don't deserve this. And one time I found an Eeyore doll, like a stuffed animal Eeyore, at a garage sale. And I brought it home, and my memory of one Winnie the Pooh movie is of a big storm, and Eeyore is found floating down. They're all looking for Eeyore. What happened to Eeyore? Eeyore is found floating down the river, and they're all excited. Oh, we found you, we found you. And Eeyore says, thanks for noticing me. And I don't think I watched that recently with my grandson, and I'm like, he didn't actually say that, did he? He said something else, but that's what's always been in my head. Thanks for noticing me. And because I had this doll, this stuffed animal, I kept it where I could see it to remind me I needed to work on my self-esteem. And it took many years to work that out so that I could say to myself, yes, I'm worthy. I deserve this, whatever it may be. And when I finally felt like I didn't need Eeyore anymore, because I got a handle on my self-esteem, I gave it to someone else, told them the story, and said, now I want you to take this, work on your self-esteem. But I think that's a big part of self-forgiveness as well, is coming around to where you feel like you deserve it. You deserve forgiveness.
yeah, that's because there's a lot of self-harm. I guess when you do that, you have the opposite of that. When you're putting yourself
Absolutely.
down, all the time. Because
And that makes me kind of reflect on what you're talking about too, in your definition of forgiveness, Jenna, on the letting go because you hold on so tightly. And how much of that is you're holding on because this is what I deserve, that punishment. But then also how much of it is holding on to that past identity. If you forgive yourself, who who am I without this, right? Who am I without feeling like I don't deserve to feel good? Who am I without me beating the crap out of myself?
Exactly. Yeah, because the alcohol, all the dark, places and bruises,
Mm,
sickness and all that you inflict upon yourself in your addiction to inflict pain upon yourself because you think you deserve it. Even after that is gone, then you're holding on to these harsh feelings and anger and not letting yourself be forgiven as a,
yes.
as a way of hurting yourself in a way because you think you deserve the pain still, even though the alcohol may be gone. But yeah, uh, mental hurdles, I guess.
It really is.
Your story reminded me that the book also, and through all the things that I've learned, just that they are very practical life lessons for anybody. All these things are, people have the traumas in their lives, doesn't have to do anything to do with addiction. I learned so many things in all the different recovery classes, that I just thought would be so useful to so many people if they were taught these things in schools, or if they would take it upon themselves for self-improvement, or online classes, whatever it was, just amazing, just stories and practices. So
Absolutely.
yeah, this book as well, yeah, has a lot of that going for it as
Yeah,
well.
it definitely like feels like you could, retitle the book to the 12 steps for after you graduate college, right? Because that's really like it really is that, building your life not just around like everything that you're taught, but actually the stuff that is going to be important and things that are overlooked like completely. And so you both taking note of as you were going through this, Jenna, and then Brenda, you putting this together, just like that's going to provide this, pathway for people to be like, this is so much easier for me than it otherwise would have been. And that's incredible.
That's what we're hoping. Um, we want to sort of shine a light of positivity on overcoming addiction. You hear the phrase addiction recovery, addiction recovery, addiction recovery, but this book is all about life recovery. You're now, if you're post rehab or you're in early sobriety, you've gotten a fairly good handle on your addiction. Now it's time for life recovery. That goes on the rest of your life. The addiction recovery, the rehab, and the classes, those are sort of temporary. If
Yeah.
you're in rehab or you've gone to a halfway house, eventually you're going to be gone from those environments and you're going to be back in your life. It's time for life recovery. And so that's why we made these chapters. There's a lot of components to life recovery. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is also just about reinvention. You have to rewrite the story, rewrite your own story, I guess. That's my longtime friend and employer says a lot. We're gonna gotta rewrite the story. This
Yeah.
story's not over yet. Like whenever I'm having a hard time, he says that a lot, and that's it's totally true. It's an unwritten story that we all can have.
Yes, absolutely. And that's something that, as somebody who has gone through a divorce, like having to build my life up post that, like just taking it one step at a time and being consistent and showing up for myself in a different way and rewriting the story goes such a long way. And speaking of rewriting stories, something that's also important that you really touch on is your social life. And something that you're providing on your website is resources to be able to help people with the, rebuilding their social lives in a different way. What have you found to be useful in pointing people in that direction?
Yeah, we were talking about the
Meetup.com is a great resource, especially for people who live in larger towns. We live in a smaller town, so there's not quite as many, but if you go on meetup.com and you put your city in and the word sober, it will give you a list of sober events. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And I'm someone who has groups that are on Meetup, and I started them so that I could find friends and create a community. And it's not just people that haven't drank, don't drink anymore. It's also people who, their lives don't revolve around alcohol. And it's like, okay, that's really what I'm looking for, events that aren't alcohol centered. And so
right.
Meetup is, whatever you want to be able to find, depending on, like you said, depending on your geographic location and things like that, is a really great place to start to be able to try new hobbies, try these things that you've never tried. It's how I found Kung Fu for myself and different yoga classes and things like that. So
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of meetup.com.
Yeah,
what are some other ways that you have been able to find some more social, being able to rewrite that social story?
Well, I have, I guess personally, I have reached out to old friends, but from a different circle. I guess, like there was the bad kids, or that I was always hanging out with. And then but there were, the good kids as well. And they were always there. I just never hung out with them. So a lot of my rewriting has been almost stepping back, I guess, just personally stepping back and looking at who I actually who would be good for me, who would be good, who would be a good influence, or who's doing what I want to be doing, because there's always been those people too that like without the problem with addiction and the people that were more successful because they weren't inhibited by that I knew already, I guess. And I have reached out to a lot of those people and have definitely started new relationships with people I already knew. in a way.
One of the ways the book addresses that is chapter 10 about volunteerism.
Oh yeah.
It's called Give Back to the World, and it's basically list after list. I'll just give you a sample. If you love forests, nature, and being outdoors, you could plant trees, you could work on local cleanup, you can educate others about the importance of forests. If you have carpentry or construction skills, you can help build or repair homes, or help install a playground. If you love cooking, you can, join a cooking class or teach a cooking class. I love chapter 10 because it's a narrow concept. Give back to the world, find something you love and volunteer in some capacity. But that is also a really great way to, like Jenna said, meet new people.
Yes.
Who are not focused on whatever you were addicted to. And so that's one of the chapters I love as well. The book is basically resources. Every chapter is just full of resources.
I like the ideas of all the things that I haven't done, but I have on my list, like going back to school as well. Like I'll meet all the new people and, I've still got to pick a subject, but I'm getting closer. But, things like going back to school or I wrote down a couple of things, but I'm also, we're working on a new Facebook group
Mhm.
to kind of to meet new people locally and probably do some meetings, a weekly meeting for
Specifically for people who are just post-rehab in an early sobriety.
right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of new, I guess,
Yeah,
the new idea.
I love that.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm excited about it because yeah. And I guess just new hobbies as well. Just out seeking new hobbies. But I do like the volunteering
I
things.
still think you should go
I know.
volunteer at Community Animal Care.
It's hard to
She's reluctant because they require a 2 hour classroom instruction because you're going to be working with wild animals. And so I don't know, one of these days maybe.
but I work at a reptile farm, so it's I already get wild animals, I guess, all the
Yeah.
time, but even I see the homeless thing gets me. And I think I'd like to find a local homeless shelter
To
volunteer or the soup kitchen or something like that. I guess helping other people that are having a hard time. I don't know. I feel like I got a lot of help and I have a lot of passion or compassion, I guess, for people in situations like that. Feeling pretty lucky and that I could pass it on, I guess, as pass it on. Yes.
Yeah. And that's something that, a lot of, AA circles and recovery circles talk about is, that service work, and doing that service work it is fulfilling. It really is. And when you see the impact on people, it's something that, it's that gift that keeps on giving. Like, you're giving something, but then you're getting that in return. And it really is a hopeful cycle that, you started with writing this book to be able to bring to people, and that, you're also going to be able to give. So as we're kind of winding down, if people want to be able to keep up with you and find out about the Facebook group and the website and everything you're up to, what are the best ways they can do that?
One good way is the Instagram feed. It's the other 12 steps. And then on the website, there's a blog. And I really enjoy writing blog posts. One of my favorites recently was a 3-part blog on how to create boundaries, which is difficult for people.
Yep. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
For people, it's difficult.
Well, you need to read the 3-part blog on setting boundaries. And the chapter 2, learn to say no without feeling guilty. That's a really good chapter. And in general, just our website, theother12steps.com. That's where people can purchase the book. There's two ebook formats, an audiobook and a paperback book. And there's a workbook to go with the paperback.
I love it.
And then the Facebook, we're trying to get together the Facebook. It's going to be,
Yeah, we're just working out the title.
We're trying to
That's about
figure out
where we are with the
a trendy, catchy, catchphrase, group name. So I was suggesting like a acronym,
an acronym
for GROW.
and we came up
nice.
with get ready, overcome, and win.
Yeah. So
GROW.
Get ready, overcome, and win. GROW, life recovery, post rehab, in early sobriety support group. So GROW.
I like that. And I mean, that's really what the theme of what we've really been talking about too, right? Like, yeah,
Definitely.
You're getting ready. Now it's overcome, and then you'll be winning. And
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boom. Right there.
Get ready, overcome, and win. It's good.
Oh.
Yeah, it's all pretty exciting.
It is. It's really great how you have, like I said, been able to take your story and share it in a way that people will be able to use it, and in some place where there's not a lot of conversations going on in the way that you're presenting it, and all of the resources that you're bringing into one place that people will be able to use.
Yeah, when I was doing research before I started writing the book, I looked for a book. I really wanted to find a book that brought all these things together, and there was nothing. You can find all these things on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can find things about getting a hobby after, in post rehab, tackling legal stuff, mental health, blah blah blah. It's all over the internet, but it's not. There is no place that I could find where it was all in one spot. So that's
Until now.
Yeah, until now.
Yeah. And this is our first podcast of hopefully many. Yay, we're so thankful.
Yes, thank you, RJ.
Thanks for getting the ball rolling. We've been kind of since the book was finished, I think just kind of sitting in poised, a little bit poised and a little bit afraid of actually taking the step. So it feels,
and you did it.
Did it.
And you crushed it. And thank you both for being here and for, again, putting this together and approaching this in such a practical way where it's not just, kind of like when we were talking about with meaning of forgiveness, it's not just about just letting go and not having tangible things that you can do, but actually giving tangible things in practical and realistic ways that people can just use it and not just think positive thoughts, like it's all going to be better.
No, well, my mom, she's good at practical. She's a thinker.
Research is my superpower.
Research is her superpower. Okay.
I give you the kudos because that is one of my biggest struggles. So if it's not in the first 5 websites, I give up. I know exactly where that's coming from, but
me too. But nose to the grindstone till she's got it. Yes,
I love it. I'm thankful for people like you that can do that, Brenda. Thank you.
Yes.
So thank you, Jenna and Brenda, for joining us this week. For you listening, please hit that subscribe button, share this episode with somebody who would benefit from it. Go give Jenna and Brenda a follow over on Instagram and keep an eye out for all the amazing things that they're doing. And, leave us a review. Let me know how I'm doing, whether it's 1 star, 5 stars, just any feedback. I would really appreciate it. Even if it's RJ, you kind of suck, that's okay. You took your time and I appreciate that time. And I'm not even saying that facetiously. So let's try to be better tomorrow than we were today, because we still don't make it. We tried. Love you, everybody. Have a great week.
Thanks.